Hey, welcome back to ShredMentor Live. I'm your host, Jason Aaron Wood, and tonight we're going to be getting into solo writing, but my favorite way of doing solo writing, which is to improvise it. Now, let's talk about something a little bit different from that first, because I want to share this with you, and it actually is kind of related a little bit to what we're talking about tonight, and I wanted to just share this right now. So what I'm going to actually do is go on over to, sorry, I'm looking for it on my screen switcher here, is guitar practice tools. All right, what we've got up here on the screen is actually not what I'm going to show you. That's just where we start. This did lead to a guitar practice tool, however. So what I want to show you here is where it actually started. Maybe I'll show you the thing first. Okay, this probably doesn't look like much, and in fact, I can see it's been updated here. Let me refresh it real quick. This is there we go. That's what it'll actually look like to you. This is the new tool that I haven't put into the guitar practice tools menu just yet, but it'll be there in the next couple of days. Mostly I just forgot to create the button. It kind of works already now. But like anything, it's going to have your beats that kind of follow you down the screen. Now you don't need to scroll down the screen yet until you expand each of these things. What these are rhythm patterns, but every possible permutation of the 3s and 2s and 4s and 6s and such. So with something as short as 3-3-2, which would be like, you have 2 sets of 3 and 1 set of 2. There's only so many different versions of that you're going to have. 3, then 2, as you can see in the first one. Then 3, then 2, then 3, or then 2, then 3, then 3, right? So what's kind of neat is not so much this, but this is a very good place to start, because now you can practice this stuff along to beats that are in the time signature, which is written next to each one. And you can try 6-6-4. All right, so I can do something like let's see. That's the 6-6-4. What if I do 6-4-6? So, starting out here. Right? And then 4-6-6. So anyway, just simple, straightforward stuff in a way, but each one has its own unique feel. So as you get into longer ones, like 3-3-3-3-2-2, you have a lot more variations because there's more individual digits that you can kind of reorganize. So I just did basic, straightforward, kind of common rhythm patterns for this so far, and a couple not so common ones as you see further down on the page, but you can start to see that we have a lot more variations when you have more 3s and more 2s. So I want to also show you how I got this, because notice I'm not using my demonic looking rhythm slashes that I usually use. I did something a little bit more crafty here this time, instead of create my own symbols, which is fun too, but this has just as many actually. They're just a little smaller because they were wider on the screen. So they're supposed to be 100% wide. And each one, by the way I made these, they have a little number at the top telling you exactly what that rhythm pattern was, just in case you're looking for a quick shorthand to create other variations of it. 3-3-4-2-2-2. Okay, well, this has 15 variations. This has 15 variations. This has 60 variations. As you see, way down there, because there's a 4. There's 3 2s. It's 3-3-4-2-2-2. So that would be like right. That's 3-3-4-2-2-2. 3-3-4-2-2-2. All right, and so you can also just hold a note. So 3-3-4. You could just hold a note over the 3, so like a dotted quarter note, half note, quarter note, quarter note, quarter note. There's another way you could kind of treat these. So you could just tie them all together that are all beamed. So it's another way you can kind of do this, but it's really good for internalizing all kinds of different rhythm patterns. And let's face it, I mean, I did this because I couldn't really think of a good way to make sure I didn't miss any of these, and it seemed like a really daunting task. So I just kind of want to share some with you today. And let me know in the chat that you are in fact able to hear me, because that would be an awful shame if I said all that and you didn't hear it. Because let's see. Yep, that's setting off the meter. So I think it's going through, but let me know for sure in the chat. I'm going to show you what I did here. It's a little ridiculous, but I basically have three different images, okay? And this is all a bunch of code, so you're probably gonna be like, what the hell am I looking at? But I went into Google Colab. I was actually messing around at first. Frankly, I just decided, like, I don't know how many variations there are of 333322. So I started here, okay? And I was just asking ChatGPT to give me an answer, and it gave me some really big number of how many variations there were, and I had a feeling it was wrong. And so I started arguing with ChatGPT and told it, like, no, that seems really high. And it said, I am a learning language model or something like that. I am not prepared to do this, but what you can do is use a Python script to do this. And it gave me the Python script. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting idea. So it's this right here, okay? And that was the simple little Python script. Now, I don't know Python at all, so this is new to me, right? But you can see right in here, 333322. Okay, so I can change that. I can change it to, whoops, wow, dropping stuff. 334222. Okay, and then I can just pick up my tablet off the floor that I use to control the screens. Be glad I didn't just go offline from doing that. There we go. Okay, let's try that again. And then from there, okay, I just entered a new rhythm pattern, and I can just press run, play, whatever. Oh, it's got to connect. Anyway, connect, and then it spits out all these different things. All right, so that is how many variations. Apparently that's actually 60 lines. That's just how many there are. So I was like, oh, that's cool, but that's mostly something that I'm going to recognize, and that's more my language. I don't really hear people talking this kind of rhythmic language. So I was like, well, what if, I told ChatGPT, that is, what if you take all those individual digits and replace them with specific images for 2, for 3, for 4, and for 6? And I've supplied the images. So now I can go in, and if I just go like this, let's see, let me run this new one. This is a much longer script, but it's based on the same concept. It does everything that the last one did, basically take all the different permutations of 2 sets of 3, one 4, and 3 sets of 2, and just every possible order of 2 3s, a 4, and 3 2s, right? And it's going to spit out an image for each one of the 2s, the individual 4, and the 3s, right? So here we are here. It has a little field. I can put that same thing in. 3 3 3 3 2 2 is kind of like the original. It's just my default that I put in all of them just to kind of test them out. But watch real quick. I'm just going to put 2. There it is. So I put that image in. And now if I go ahead and do 3. Whoops, not download. I also have a download button built into it. Generate rhythms, 3. All right, I have a separate image for that. And I have a separate image for 4. And a separate image for 6. Right? And I can download these individual ones, but this is what's already there. You can see the number itself, 2, really, really tiny up in the corner. But it's basically also a script that puts the actual number in the top. So 2. There's only one variation of 2 because it's just one digit. So if I do 2 3, generate rhythms, it's going to create one image that has 3 then 2 and 2 then 3, because there's 2 different ways, 2 orders that can go in. All right, so this is a neat little tool. I'm working on a way to get this part into ShredMentorOnline.com on the guitar practice tools. I'm having a hard time working out how to get Python scripts to actually run directly on the Drupal website, but this is a new tool I'm pretty excited about, and it actually generated all that stuff I just showed you on this page. All came out of that, and you can see they all have the label over here. You can keep track of which one you're looking at. You can write it down later, and you can practice it, of course, along to the beats. And now you see with that many variations, now we have a reason to scroll up and down the screen. So just wanted to take a minute to talk about the cool rhythm practice thing. This is a cool 6/8 one, 2 3s and 3 2s. So like that's a fun one. I always like that particular rhythm pattern. Anyway, that's a nice way to break things up in 6/8. It's almost like playing a measure of 6/8, 1 2 3 4 5 6, and then playing a measure of 3 4, or the accenting of 3 4, 1 and 2 and 3 end. So it's like 1 2 3 4 5 6, 1 and 2 and 3 end. The accenting is essentially doing that, but you just do it in either 6/8 or 3 4. Really, it doesn't matter. You still have 6/8 notes per measure. You could do it in one measure of 12/8 too. So it's rhythm practice in general. It'll, as we always talk about here in ShredMentor land, prepare you for the widest range of real life situations possible first. All right. Anyway, that's a little off to the side. It's very related to what we're going to be doing tonight, though. So let's dive into some backing tracks, and we will talk a little bit about improvising guitar solos. Again, let me know in the chat that you can hear me, because it would be great if you can follow along and do what I'm doing. Anyway, I'm going to start off with an E minor backing track. I've played along to this one before too, but I'm going to kind of talk about a couple things that I do when I actually go to write a solo. And when I write a solo, when I write music, I mean I'm recording it. In my opinion, music that isn't recorded doesn't exist yet. And until it's in a format that you can actually play it back for someone and they can get the same exact idea and same listening experience, that song doesn't exist yet, or that solo doesn't exist yet. So all the things I'm talking about, that improvising a solo isn't really worth a whole lot if you haven't captured it. So make sure you're actually recording into a DAW, D-A-W, digital audio workstation. So if you're new to recording, that's the multi-track software that we record into. If you don't have that yet, I would recommend Reaper. Go to Reaper.fm. Reaper like the Grim Reaper. Reaper.fm. I'm not sponsored or anything by Reaper or anything. It's just really inexpensive and fully functioning professional grade recording software that you can use, and you can get it for free right now. Have it for 60 days free, and after 60 days it actually isn't even handicapped. So if you just don't feel like spending $60 yet, $60, that's right, it's all it costs. The other ones tend to cost hundreds and hundreds of dollars, so it's just sort of a win-win. It's, if I didn't already start on Cubase 22 years ago, I would probably start with Reaper today. It's just I already have my workflow. But anyway, recording into a DAW with some kind of either USB or Thunderbolt if you're on a Mac or whatever, but a recording interface. You need something that is designed to plug your guitar directly into it and record yourself as you go. But anyway, that said, everything I'm talking about tonight is designed to be done along to backing tracks or your own music, better yet, inside of recording software while pressing record while doing this, so that you capture what you've done. Okay, so anyway, as I said, I'm going to go into some of the things that I do when I go to improvise a solo. Okay, and I'm not going to be recording it tonight because it's just not how I have the live stream set up. I'm instead going to be using the backing tracks on Guitar Practice Tools on my own website, ShredMentorOnline.com. And by the way, you can get a 30-day free trial of that right now at GuitarPracticeTools.com, and after that it's only $10 a month, so it's pretty win-win. I'm going to be using this E minor D chord progression. All right, it's just 2 chords back and forth. It's pretty slow tempo. I don't remember what it was, but one of the first things is basically I try to start on anything but the root note of whatever the first chord is. It's just too same. It's, a lot of music does start on the root note of the key. It starts on the root note of the chord. It's already in the music. The first chord is an E minor chord, and then it's followed by a D major chord. So you know what I'm not going to play first? In E. All right, so that's one of the first things. And what I also will do is I like to start in the lower range, not way down there, but I will start like here. But no, I'm not going to start on E. I'm going to start on a like that. All right, so I'm going to start there and work my way gradually higher and higher. Oops. Oops. All right, anyway, and I could just keep going. I'm not going to go on for 10 whole minutes doing that. But what I might do in some cases is I will just record myself going over. I'll just actually take whatever the backing parts are that's going to be my solo and just extend it for a while. Just way longer than I really mean for it to actually be in the song. But it just gives me some time to just try different cool things, like, you know, the things that I like, and cut out the parts I don't like, and kind of go through and sift through and find the best parts. I might end up playing the entire thing all over again, but at first I will just use the scissors tool and cut it at the measure lines and piece it together until it's the length that I actually want it to be in the song. All right, I want to point out a couple of the other things that I did there too. I just wanted to give you a taste of some of the soloing first. I'm hoping that it's also fairly synced up, because I have noticed that as I play back some of my past shows that the audio is a little bit out of sync. I promise you that my mistakes were all the wrong notes and not the wrong time, because most of what I'm doing is actually rhythmic improv while coloring it in with certain notes. So if it sounds a little off time, it's unfortunately because of the voice meter software and the actual the way that the OBS software is receiving audio from my browser. So apologies for that. I did spend quite a lot of time trying to figure out why the hell it does that, but hopefully it's not doing that too bad where you're not getting the point of what I'm playing as I go. Also, I don't remember what the hell I just played, so I'm not going to be playing any of that again. Another reason I like to improvise and press record, because I just won't remember what I did. Claudio, hey, how's it going? Horns up to you as well. Thank you for joining tonight. Okay, so I am going to... Oh yeah, so one of the things that I was kind of also doing there then is I would, again, as I said, I start a little lower and I go higher and higher and higher. And I also like to start on generally not the root note. I don't always start low and gradually ascend until I'm playing in a much higher range, but I do it a lot. It's a really cool function, and it has this rising kind of feel to it. Also, though, there's one thing that I did that I didn't mention beforehand, and that is that I start slow, and then as I get about halfway into my solo, a few times through the chord progression at least, I wait to really do the shred. Some solos have a different purpose. Sometimes the solo's purpose is to melt your face off immediately, right out of the gate. I like those solos too. They're fun. This particular track, I feel like it doesn't really call for that. I could just play 30-second notes the whole damn time. I'm sure that could be fine. It's just not really matching to the mood. So it's a slower, softer kind of track too. It's just more of a rock kind of thing. But yeah, one thing that I want you to notice, I'm going to do it again, but I'm going to start slower and then introduce the more speed type technical playing later on. You want to pull the listener in a little bit with more phrasing based stuff, stronger melodies, clearer, straightforward melodies, and then start to blur the lines with things that are faster than most people can think. So when it's a more tasteful way to shred, in most people's opinion. So I'm going to hit play real quick on the next one. This is sort of the reset button for that one. All right. It's almost the same track, by the way. That was just the distorted guitar version from about 14 years ago when I didn't know a damn thing about mixing. So this one's just a little clearer. So anyway, let's try this. So hardly going like face melting speed really at all, but I'm saving the more complicated stuff. I'm moving around a lot, of course, but I'm saving the faster stuff. I just superimposed triplets over top of a basic eighth note pattern, a little bit polyrhythmic kind of a thing going on there. I saved the slightly more complicated rhythmic stuff, including the faster stuff, for a little bit later. I like to go at least 2 times through the chord progression, assuming we're dealing with like a 4 chord progression repetition part. I will deal with 2 times through the chord progression in a slower way, and then I will start to bring out the shreds chops, even maybe leading into the 3rd time, maybe not all the way after 2 full calm renditions of it. So I might take it easy for most of the first 2 times. If the solo is supposed to be short, and it's only 2 times through a chord progression, obviously I wait to the second half to do the shred stuff. Sometimes I'll wait all the way to the outro and I'll just throw, I'll just throw one of those at you, right? And that's fine. I mean, any of those things will work pretty well, okay? So I just wanted to kind of point some of that stuff out. That's the thinking behind what I'm actually doing. Now, some other things that I'm doing here is also using syncopation and phrasing a lot. So I'm going to run back into that same track again. I'm going to use this one up for a few times, and then I'll show it with other tracks as well. Again, real quick reset button. Okay. Now I am going to start on the E, but I'm going to actually hit the G and this is part of the phrasing thing here, is that I'm going to actually use a lead-in phrase. It's just a simple 2-note phrase in order to land on the 3rd of the chord right when the chord starts. Okay, all right, and so I'm going to focus a lot on phrasing, which also means things like how I play, not how and when I play, not just what I play. The way that I approach notes, the way I do bending and stuff. I'm going to do a lot of bending and vibrato because that's really where a lot of the expression is. Phrasing is about expression, so you can really feel a lot of the time very well, effectively with good phrasing. So I like to do that, especially for that first half. It's hard to do really a lot of bends and vibrato if you're playing like 30-second notes or something like that, or even just 16th note triplets, or even 16th notes depending on the tempo. There's not a lot of time to squeeze a bunch of bends in there, so it's going to come down to doing that on the longer notes that are held out. So I'll do as much with rhythmic syncopation and rhythmic interest in general, as well as bending and vibrato. Bend. So that could have been a good ending, you know. Maybe that goes into another thing where it's, you know, another part, you know, and then maybe maybe it's a different chord that contains that. So it might have been like, you know, maybe that's the next section, and that's where my, you know, my final E comes in. It just, you know, rings out into the background, and maybe the final chorus of the song or something comes in there too. So you notice I did still just instinctively. I wasn't even trying to go higher, but I still did it. But it was a lot more bending. I remember I started with that. So it's a big difference from just playing every note at its home fret. Get in the habit of seriously just bend as much as you possibly can, as often as you can, into as many of the different notes that you're going to play as you can. It's a much more interesting way, much more expressive way to play. Now, of course, it can get a little bit too bluesy, so you might notice I did a little bit of sliding from time to time too. So I was like, if the bending is a little too twangy for you, I get it. I totally get it, and sometimes it's a little bit much for me too. That's where I will revert to things like sliding. So let's, you know, in fact, when I do ebow playing, I don't really bend hardly at all. I can't see my ebow from here because I have a light shining directly in my eyes. I won't do the ebow tonight, but when I do play with an ebow, I do a lot of sliding. It's easier to keep the ebow on one string. The electronic bow, by the way, there are other alternatives, but it's basically a device you put over your strings, and it magnetizes the string that it's hovering over, so it just rings endlessly, and it's really cool. But anyway, let's see. I'm going to do a little bit more bending. No, less bending, more sliding this time. I use this as a 4 count. 3, 4. Little bend. So really sliding like crazy a lot for that. All right, and it's still putting vibrato on pretty much any note that is held out. All right, I want to talk about vibrato for a minute too, because taking some time to develop your vibrato quality is pretty important. In fact, the way I usually break it down is that there's 3 main aspects of your vibrato. Let me make sure I'm seeing any additional comments in the chat if they come up. Let me know for sure if you can hear me. I suppose you can because you're here, Claudio. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions in there too. But whenever I have students ask me about vibrato, which is pretty often, there's a couple factors. Okay, there's how wide you're going to do the individual bends. There's how fast you're going to do the bends, and there's also when you start doing the vibrato. Okay, I'm going to use this with a track once again. But here's the thing. Okay. Pay attention. I'm going to hit the reset button one more time. When I start my note, listen to when the vibrato happens. Notice how I wait about 2 beats, at least 1 beat. I always wait at least 1 beat, but I wait 1 to 2 beats before I even start to apply the vibrato. This is so that the listener gets the actual note in their ears before I start embellishing it, because what we're doing to embellish it here is changing the pitch ever so slightly. So if you just go, It's like, if you're even slightly off and you start being consistent with your bends, you're going to keep being off every single time. So it's good to, you'll notice this with any really skilled singer who does vibrato. A lot of pop singers don't do vibrato, but outside of that realm, you'll notice that they also will hold the notes straight first and then apply the polish. Accidentally hitting pinch harmonics or tapped harmonics from time to time. Great mistake to make. Didn't mean to do any one of those pinch harmonics, or actually they were accidental tap harmonics because my finger got too close to the string in exactly the right place. So my mistake, I'm keeping it. It technically was recorded, by the way, even though I said I'm not recording this into a DAW. I am recording this track and it's going on YouTube right now, so it'll be here to watch again. So it's all here. So if you make a mistake in your recording, don't go back and record over it if it sounds good because you didn't mean to do it. Learn how you did it and do it on purpose next time. Keep it if it sounds great. Okay, if it sounds good, it is good. Remember that. That is a recording saying, but it applies to music in general because the whole damn point of music is to sound good. Unless you're in one of those weird bands that purposely tries to sound really bad. Prog does that sometimes. Anyway, at least just don't do it for too long. Ugliness can have its appeal on purpose. Anyway, so that's where I talk a bit about syncopation and phrasing. There were some things where 3 parts of phrasing I like to talk about a little bit too on these shows, are what I call the 3 textures strategy. Okay, and it's basically, there's 3 particular techniques that you can use to play pretty much any melody. The same way, it's going to give it a different paint job. And those are legato, just all hammer-ons and pull-offs, or almost all hammer-ons and pull-offs, as few pick strokes as possible, and then regular old picking, probably alternate picking, and then picking with palm muting, or specifically selective palm muting. All right, so let me just go into, I'll just do a drone, because why not? E. Okay, and I can take this phrase. So you notice it's exactly the same melody, but it comes across 3 completely different ways. Just hammer-ons and pull-offs. Picking, which is kind of like neutral. To me, it seems like neutral in the middle. And then really more punchy, where it's a lot more accent, or emphasis rather, on the accent and on the pick stroke, the pick attack. Whereas with the hammer-ons and pull-offs version, there's almost no discernible attack. The notes just sort of just blend into each other on the rhythm, but still, not really pronounced attack like you have with a pick stroke. So you can practice all 3 of them together as one exercise every time you play any finger exercise, which, let's go to the next thing. Exercises, I highly recommend you use sequences for this. It also is much better for your melodic continuity, the thematic continuity in particular of your idea is going to benefit a lot. So, for example, one of the most famous sequences is 2-2-2-1. That is, there's 2 notes. The higher note plays 3 times, and the lower note plays once. You want to guess what that melody is? We've all heard it. What is it followed by? Another 2-2-2-1. A theme is born. Call and response. Same concept. Move down a mode in the scale. 2-2-2-1. different. 2 2 2 1, and that's, you know, and then within the rhythm too, it's actually E and a 2, rest E and a 2, rest E and a 2. So anyway, that's a sequence right there. Just to give you a famous example that is, you know, you kind of can't go wrong. Beethoven rocks. Anyway, so sequences. I'll just go ahead and get this thing going here. All right. So if I'm going to do, you know what? Now let's go back to the actual chord progressions, and once again, the reset button. I'm going to go like this. I'm going to go. Basically 5 from the scale, the fifth of the scale. 5, 5, 4, 3, 2, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's sort of like holding the note and then playing a sequence of 4. It's basically the sequence of 4, but with the first note sustained for the first 4 beats. Okay, so I'm just using this, and I'll keep using this. I can use it again and again because the notes that I'm starting on happen to be chord tones in each case. From the E minor, I'm playing the 5th, and then when I go to play an A, that's the 5th of the D major chord. 1. 2, 3, 4. Right? That's all just a sequence. I'm holding a note and then starting at it, playing 4 notes down. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Or actually 4. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4. 4, 3, 2, 1. 4. 4, 3, 2, 1. Skipping the note C in this, in case you noticed that. It's on purpose. There's no C note in either of these 2 chords. It's the one note in the scale that's actually being left out when you play a 1-7 progression is the 6. There's no 1-3-5 doesn't contain a 6, and 2-4-7 doesn't contain a 6. So C just doesn't really have doesn't have a main role to play here. It can be used for sure, but it doesn't really work here. It's not doing enough of the heavy lifting in terms of resolving my melody, I should say. Okay, so the sequences, it's really good for thematic continuities. It makes your melodies sound like they go together better. Okay, now I'm going to also talk a little bit more about sequences, and let me just do a quick reset button here. Okay, also when it comes to the shred passages, okay, so for example, yeah, so right? So something like that. Right, so yeah, something like that. It makes it a lot easier, obviously, once you work at it a lot and get the motor memory for it up to speed there, to play shred passages. It really works a lot better to incorporate a lot of sequences, because then you can do, you know, it's just need to get really, really familiar with what your hand needs to do to get through each mode of whatever scale you're playing. And, you know, and I've done it a lot as practice in exercise form, but for the most part now I just deal with the section of the scale that I'm about to try to, you know, incorporate into my scale now. So I'm past the part where I'm trying to find my notes and stuff. That's what I established when I did it as exercises. So it's very good to practice sequences as, you know, a big part of what you do. But when you go to actually write, especially when it comes to, you know, playing fast, that's definitely going to be one of your best friends there. So like earlier when I went to do something fast, it was a sequence of 6s. That was the sequence of 4s. 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1, 4, 3, 2, 1. right, so in tune enough. Okay, so sequences are getting a double whammy here because they do help with your composition, but they also help a lot with your ability to actually play more shreddy stuff too. I wrote a whole book on it in 2017, and it's still available on the site now, in fact. And you know what? Here, let's take a look over here at solutions. Or if you want to go straight to it, you're not on my website right now, which you probably are not. Here's the hardcover version, which is actually on Amazon, but you can get the ebook for only $10. Actually, what, like $9.95 now? Actually, so it's a pretty good deal, and it's lots and lots and lots of sequences for you to incorporate into it. And the great thing about sequences is that they're not particularly locked to any scale. It's just the number of notes you're playing being done in sort of a formula. It's a sequence is basically a formula for you to play a certain number of notes in a certain order. It doesn't matter what the notes are or what their relationship to each other is. It could be anything. All right. So I could do sequence. In fact, sequence of fours that I just did with the. And so on. Flight of the Bumblebee is exactly that for a minute. There we go. And then. Something like that. I haven't played this in a very long time, but that's just 4 notes down, 4 notes down from somewhere else, 4 notes down from somewhere else, 4 notes down from somewhere else. And so on. Yeah, basically, yeah. That's your. Just to give you an example, one is a diatonic scale and one is a chromatic scale. So Flight of the Bumblebee uses chromatic for a different type of melodic character. Totally musically viable though, and it's the same sequence. All right. So just to give you one famous example, well, again, I tend to reach into classical music for examples like that because let's see anybody try to say that's not music. It's music. It might be stuffy. Aristocratic music, possibly, and maybe not that one so much. Not by the time that came out, but anyway, yeah. You've got here on the screen the book of sequences. Just go to ShredMentorOnline.com/products, and you can get your copy right there. If you have any issue with checkout, getting that, by the way, once in a while, the plugin on my website that does the purchase hangs at in checkout when the payment's already gone through. If you send it through and it doesn't look like anything, just make sure, check your PayPal real quick. I go through every time just to make sure this doesn't happen, and I will email you the copy myself anyway. So don't worry, you're going to get it with it. Just going to take maybe an hour at most, but just check, make sure that the payment actually went through before you try to send it through a second time, just in case. So sorry about the bug. I'm working on it, but I'm running out of ideas to figure out what actually is causing it. So anyway, there's the book of sequences. Anyway, okay, so let's get back to, not the practice beats, chord progressions. Let's do some other chord progressions. I'm feeling a little C sharp minor. How about huge doom metal? Let's see here. Let me make sure all right, so yeah, the big thing we're doing here is we're connecting the dots between the chord changes. We're reconciling the chord changes with notes that go with the next chord. So during each chord, we're trying to, the secret isn't such a big secret really. The notes to play in your scale at each time are the notes that are already in the chord. That's it. It's not that you should never play the other notes at the scale during it. They're the notes that the notes in the chord are the ones you want to land on and hold out and emphasize. Those are the ones that make your melody resolve. It makes your melody sound like you just channeled it from beyond, like it's totally meant to be. Perfect sounding melodies. It can be a little bit too boring if you don't incorporate some of the flavors of the non-chord tones as well, so you don't want to just play the arpeggio of the chord you're playing the whole time. That can get really, really boring and stale and predictable. So there is a bad part of playing all safe notes. It's a little too safe and it doesn't add anything nice or new or interesting to what you're doing. So as much as I could just go in there and, gotta do something else, right? So, so just moving around, keeping the constant flow going, trying to play off of the rhythm in different ways, and not even so much syncopation, just rhythmic interest. That is, different rhythmic values occasionally. Hold a note out once in a while. To oversimplify it, that's really what it could kind of be, you know. Just again, just there's not a lot going on in this track. So a lot of just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. And I'm doing a lot of straight eighth notes, but I am trying to also throw in a little bit of phrasing, trying to throw in some palm muting and stuff like that. And again, I'm doing it all on the fly right now. A couple warts here and there, I admit, you know, and that's what's nice about recording it. You don't have to leave the mistakes in there. In fact, listen for them later on and go back and fix them, record over those. But you can spot fix them. You don't have to do like this is not the time when you're recording solos for like an album or even just a single and you're about to record your first song and finish it and release it or whatever. Hopefully you're not going to release your first song, but the first song that you're going to release, you know. Improvising a solo is great because, I mean, it's in recorded form and, you know, the sections that maybe could be played better, you know, basically listen very closely to the recording for any flukes, string noise, wrong notes, badly played notes, poorly executed phrases, out of time playing, or other mistakes, and fix each of those things. But you don't have to fix the whole solo. This is not the time to master the entire thing that you're not even sure how it goes yet because you're still writing it. So that's for later, okay? Remember, we do these. There's not the time for this. The time for that is when you're going to get ready to go and play this on a stage in front of people. That's when you need to know how to play your stuff and how to play it well, consistently. Right now, you just need to play well consistently enough just to get the damn idea in there and write it in such a way that you'll be able to play it on a dark stage in front of total strangers, where you can't hear yourself, because that's what live is like, especially when you get started. So yeah, that all needs to be there. But record as you go. One phrase at a time. Also, one nice thing about using a recording software to write your solos, not only do they come into actual existence, because they cease to be, they are not existing yet until they are in recorded form, but also you have the ability to use MIDI to help you out, especially in those more complicated sections. There was a guest solo I did about 10 years ago for a Shroud of Bereavement, and I think it came out great. It was actually the first one I did, and it was called Bury Me in Silence is the name of the song. I recommend you check it out after this show. But that particular solo was really challenging for me because the chord progression was really interesting. What he did, he's basically used, they're all minor chords. So, but there's like it's 8 different keys. They're all minor chords, but not in a black metal sense. Although they took on a little bit of a black metal quality, but it was basically B minor, the scale, the notes of the B minor scale, but each note of the B minor scale was a minor chord. And so every note ultimately, or every chord rather, was consisted of an entire held out chord for a while. So I had a whole solo section over 8 different keys to be in, except for the final. I guess the first, it started off in B minor, and then it was suddenly C sharp minor. Then I was in D minor, and then I was in E minor, and F sharp minor, and G minor, and A minor. And then the final thing was, right, setting my guitar out of tune recently. Anyway, so yeah, that was a real challenge because, I mean, that's like a lot of key changes. That's not just, you're not going to be playing the B minor scale over that whole thing and get it to sound good. Even if that's what the basis of the chords were, the chords themselves put you in a new key. Every one of those is the root of the new key every time. So individual key changes like that, it's like a lot to keep track of because I'm shredding all over the friggin' place. So I used MIDI to plan the whole section, like section by section out. I had my guitar in my hand to play it and see what sounded good and worked out. I would always put my finger, the same finger I left off on, back on the same fret on the same string where I left off on, so that the next thing I start to play is something near where my hand can reach. This is a little tip I picked up from myself, from experience along the way, from writing solos that actually were not very playable in the end, which I found out on a dark stage in front of strangers where I couldn't hear myself well. So I learned from my own mistake of writing solos that were phrase by phrase just good solos for sure, but they really were not very playable by one guitar. They really necessitated overdubs and coming in exactly like a 16th note or a 32nd note after somewhere way over here. So like it's super setting yourself up for failure. So don't do that. Instead, you know, if I go like put your pinky on that note when you go to start the next phrase. So I could do that twice in a row. That's a bonus tonight. I play the same exact thing twice in a row. So because I planned it out. So this is a big part of it. Just pay attention to what you did. I know you're just improvising, and that's often going to mean for you and for me that we're not going to really remember exactly what we did, which is why it's important to record it as you go. But that's the trick, is just kind of try to remember sort of what you did, work through the phrase itself, put the same finger down that you had, because that's going to mean if I have my pinky down on 16 on the 5th string, that means I can't have my pinky up here at 24 a 16th note later on the 1st string. It's just not if I want to play it well and ever have it sound good. And even if you can get it to sound good in the studio, if you can't do it on stage, that's where you're going to embarrass yourself by not being able to do it. So write solos you can play live later. Write solos in such a way that makes them able to be played live later. Okay, take this to heart. Trust me on this one. Luckily, I pulled them off, you know, but it was really, really hard, and I made my job a lot harder for myself. So luckily, I didn't undo myself too badly on stage in front of strangers, and there weren't that many strangers there in the earlier parts of my career anyway. But there weren't that many people there, let's just say. Anyway, though, I feel like I kind of hit everything here. So record as you go, just a phrase at a time, or repeat your part that you're recording the solo to go along with over and over and over for like way too long on purpose. You can just delete the parts you don't need and trim it back to the actual length you want it to be. But this allows you to just solo kind of aimlessly for a while and then pick out your favorite bits and compile them back into a shorter version of the solo and get rid of everything but the really good bits so that it's exactly the length that you originally wanted the solo to be. It's another great way to do it, but I would recommend having your drums and your rhythm guitars and your bass and stuff all just in there, or at least the rhythm guitars and the drums. All right, so then have it all snapped to the grid nice and neat so that you can just copy paste, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste over and over. Just record a long ass solo over it and pick your favorite bits, or do it at just a section at a time, one time through each chord progression, one section, and so you can deal with it in manageable quantities. Remember what I said as far as, like, if you unless it's a purposely melt your face off immediately type of solo, start in slow. Let it go for, if it's 4 repetitions, maybe the first 2 times go pretty slow, longer held out notes, slower melodies. Maybe on the way into the 3rd repetition of the chord progression, maybe throw a little something in there. But at that point, from the 3rd time on, melt their face off. But from time to time, you don't want it to be 2 completely different solos unless there's really a change and it's a new chord progression. Then maybe that's, a new section of the song kicking in, and then that calls for something else. But let's say if just the same part and it repeats 4 times, you can pace it a little bit in such a way so that you don't blow your wad in the first 5 seconds. Because I guarantee you, from experience, if you go in and try to melt their face right away, you're going to have to keep that up now. Okay, that's the other thing, is you as a player are making your own job a lot harder if you don't give the listener something a little bit gradual that allows you to pace yourself. Because if you just come out of the gate ripping it up, you're going to get to hold a note once in a while, but you know what the listener's going to expect? The whole damn time. All right, so you're going to have to just come up with more and more stuff that you can keep that going with. And sometimes that's the point of the solo. This is ShredMentor Rock Guitar Academy, so don't get me wrong, that is totally what we need to do sometimes. That's what the purpose of some solos is, just to melt their face off totally right away. Just, holy crap, look at me go. Fine, that's part of the appeal, especially in a lot of styles of metal. So, not going to knock it. I'm just going to say that people do have their limit, and it also sets the stage for what you're about to do. So if you go in a little slower, it gives you some more room to grow. If you just go like that, how are you going to what's going to be the climax of that if you're already playing at top speed the instant you start? Think about the gradual, the experience, the almost character arc of your solo. If you're trying to tell any kind of story with this thing, you sort of blow your wad right away if you just come out of the gate ripping it up all the time. You don't want to do it all the time, so just beware of that. Try writing some solos like that. You'll get to see what I mean firsthand, by the way. So yeah, start slower, introduce higher speeds, maybe about half of the way in. Start lower in notes. This is a tactic. It's not something you do all the time necessarily, but it's a good tactic and it works. But you can start lower in the range. It doesn't have to be as low as I started. I started all the way down here for an E minor chord, but just start in the mid-range area. Just maybe not all the way up here, unless gives you a little somewhere to go if you leave the highest range of your guitar open at first to go there. If you just start right there, again, it doesn't leave you. It's like a climax to your solo by having that open, that soaring mountaintops, highest notes on your guitar. It just allows you to. It leaves that open to go there later. So it's nice to sort of just start a little bit lower so you have that there for the big finish. Try to start on something other than the root note of the chord that you're playing. It's not bringing anything new to the table, and if it's that chord, then I guarantee you that note's already present somewhere in the band. So you don't need to play the root note of your chord first. Do something other. Play the 3rd or the 5th, or even play a non-chord tone and resolve to the root 3rd or 5th. Just don't start on the root. At least if you do, bend into it or do something interesting or get the hell off it soon or something like that. It's not like it's a bad note. It's the safest note. It's just, for that reason, it's the least adventurous note and the least interesting note. So make it a point to kind of try to hit, or at least start your melodies not on the root note of the chord that you're actually playing on. It's just better writing. And outside of that, don't forget about, obviously, really push the syncopation and the phrasing as far as you can, because there's so much you can do. This is stuff that we talk about a great deal in the Total Artist Development System, which is not changing for me now, but anyway. The Total Artist Development System. That's what I'm trying to talk about here. It just didn't come up. This is what we do here at ShredMentor Rock Guitar Academy, is we work on our ability to go from maybe even total beginner or wherever we happen to be getting on this journey, visualizing what we're going to do, working out our musicianship to the point where we are ready for prime time, ready to hit the world stage, and becoming able to apply those skills in a real life musical situation like what I'm doing here tonight. And improvising to a backing track is an excellent example of how to apply your musical skills that you develop in practice in a real life type of situation, not just playing exercises and stuff, but actually applying it, knowing which note from your scale to play at which time, and actively listening to what's going on behind you and stuff. This is much more than just playing exercises. This is real life musical skills. And to me, I also have found really throughout life that whatever you can do on the spot, improvising, is really a very good litmus test, whether fair or not, of what you can really do. How good a musician you really are does come down to what you can do on the spot. Because if you need 65 tries to get it right, let's not say that's the most honest way to I finally got it on take 66. If it takes you that long, maybe you need to work on that, all the skills involved in doing that a bit more, so that you can do it more spontaneously. Not like I didn't do a couple of mistakes here tonight, but for the most part, I could have if I had been recording this into a session with this as the chord progressions I played along to, I could have kept it. And that's the ultimate part of this pipeline in the Total Artist Development System, is that we are basically starting from start to finish, working out your musicianship, bringing it up to the highest possible level so that you are ready to apply your skills, turn them into tangible recorded music, and release it, and then rinse and repeat, and really fulfill whatever you have in your mind about what you've always wanted to do, to get the music in your head out into the recorded form so that the real world and everybody in it can hear it, so you have something to share with people. You can share the musical experiences that you have inside of you. I'm going to help you harness that, mold it, develop it further, and accomplish all of that in a fraction of the time that it took me to figure out how to do it myself, because I had to do it the stupid, stubborn way, and that was dumb. You shouldn't make the same dumb mistake I did. You should just take my advice, because I've been doing this for over 22 years. And I can help you. So, and you're under no obligation if this is not the right thing for you. Once you set up your free introductory session and talk with me through the form at ShredMentor.com. If you find out, it's not for you, no hard feelings. You're not under any obligation. But the thing is, I think you're going to be pretty excited to get going once we get talking, because these are all the things that you've always wanted to do. And we're going to put a little bit of a clear face on what that's going to look like. And this is going to become suddenly a very, very real opportunity for you. So I'm not sure what you're waiting for, or why if you're still listening to me talk, I don't really know why. You should be on ShredMentor.com filling out the form to book that call right now. Anyway, I'm going to go, because I got to get to bed and see my kid to bed. So I will see you guys again next week. Rock on, my friends.